August 27th, 1896, Ain, Zanzibar Harbor, 9 a.m. British Consul Basil Cave stands on the deck of HMS St. George, watching the Sultan's palace across the water. Behind him, 3 Royal Navy gunboats have their weapons trained on the wooden structure. On shore, 150 British Marines are ready. Nearly 900 Zanzibari troops, loyal to Britain, wait for orders. Inside the palace, Sultan Khalid bin Bargash surveys his defenses. Around 2,800 Zanzibaris, palace guards, servants, slaves, and conscripted civilians have barricaded themselves inside. They've positioned artillery pieces and machine guns pointing at the British ships. They're ready to fight. Cave checks his watch. The ultimatum expires in 60 seconds. 1 minute until war. At 9:02 a.m., the guns open fire. By 9:40 a.m., it's over. The palace is in ruins. The Sultan has fled. 500 defenders are dead or wounded. The Anglo-Zanzibar War has lasted 38 minutes, the shortest recorded war in history. This is the story of how imperial power, succession politics, and a stubborn nephew created history's briefest war. Step 1. How Britain took control, 1890. To understand this 38-minute war, we need to go back 6 years. Zanzibar, a small island off the coast of East Africa. For centuries, it's been ruled by the sultans of Oman, independent, prosperous, controlling valuable trade routes. But by 1890, the age of European imperialism is in full swing. Britain and Germany are carving up East Africa between them, drawing lines on maps, claiming territories. In 1890, Britain and Germany sign the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty. Germany agrees to recognize British control over Zanzibar. In exchange, Britain gives Germany the tiny island of Heligoland in the North Sea and control over mainland Tanzania. Zanzibar becomes a British protectorate. On paper, the Sultan still rules. In reality, Britain controls everything. The treaty includes a crucial clause. Any candidate for Sultan must obtain British approval before taking the throne. The British get veto power over Zanzibar's ruler, its sovereignty in name only. Sultan Ali bin Said rules first under this arrangement. He's cooperative, cautious. When he dies in 1893, Britain has a clear preference for his successor. Step 2, the pro-British Sultan, 1893 to 1896. Hamad bin Thuwaini becomes Sultan in 1893. He's Britain's choice. Pro-British, willing to follow orders. Many Zanzibaris see him as a puppet. And they're not wrong. Hamad maintains close ties with Britain. He accepts their increasing control. He agrees to their policies, including the controversial abolition of the slave trade, which devastates Zanzibar's economy. The slave trade has been central to Zanzibar's prosperity. The British campaign to end it creates enormous resentment among Arab merchants and the ruling class. They're losing their most valuable labor source and economic foundation. To control growing dissent, the British authorize Hamad to raise a 1,000-man palace bodyguard. It's supposed to maintain order. Instead, the bodyguards become a source of tension, clashing with British-led police, causing problems for European residents. For 3 years, this uneasy arrangement holds. Then on August 25, 1896, everything changes. Sultan Hamad dies suddenly at 11:40 a.m. The cause is never officially determined, but many suspect poison, and they suspect his 29-year-old nephew, Khalid bin Bargash. Step 3, the succession crisis, August 25, 26, 1896. Within hours of Hamad's death, Khalid bin Bargash moves into the palace complex without British approval. He doesn't wait, doesn't ask permission. He simply takes the throne. This is rebellion, direct violation of the 1890 treaty. The British are clear about their position. Khalid cannot be sultan. They prefer Hamud bin Mohammed, another royal family member who's more sympathetic to British interests. But Khalid refuses to back down. He's the son of a previous sultan. He has a legitimate claim, and he's tired of British interference. Within hours, Khalid rallies supporters. Around 2,800 people gather at the palace guard, hundreds of servants and slaves, and civilians conscripted from Zanzibar city. They barricade the entrances, set up defensive positions. The defenders have equipment: 4 artillery pieces, several Maxim machine guns, a Gatling gun, a 17th century bronze cannon, and 2 12-pounder field guns. They even have a navy, His Highness's ship, Glasgow, the royal yacht built for a previous sultan. It's outdated but armed. Khalid positions his artillery facing the harbor, pointing directly at British warships. The message is clear: I'm not leaving. Basil Cave, the British consul, sends urgent messages: stand down, leave the palace, accept Britain's choice for sultan. Each message is ignored. Cave sends a telegram to London. Are we authorized to fire on the palace if peaceful solutions fail? The response comes quickly. You are authorized to adopt whatever measures you may consider necessary, and will be supported in your action by Her Majesty's government. Britain is willing to go to war. Step 4. The ultimatum. August 26, 27, 1896. By August 26th, British naval power has assembled in Zanzibar harbor. 2 cruisers, 3 gunboats, 150 marines and sailors, and 915 pro-British Zanzibari troops under Brigadier General Lloyd Matthews, all under the command of Rear Admiral Harry Rawson. The British force vastly outmatches Khalid's defenders: modern warships with heavy artillery versus a wooden palace with outdated guns, professional sailors and marines versus hastily recruited civilians. But Khalid still believes the British won't actually attack. He thinks it's a bluff. On August 26th, Cave issues the final ultimatum. Khalid must leave the palace by 9 a.m. on August 27th, or Britain will open fire. That night, Cave orders all non-military boats to leave the harbor. War is coming. At 8 a.m. on August 27th, 1 hour before the deadline, Khalid sends a message. We have no intention of hauling down our flag, and we do not believe you would open fire on us. Cave replies in classic British diplomatic style, I have no desire to fire upon the palace, but unless you do as you are told, we shall certainly do so. It's the last communication between them. At 9 a.m., the ultimatum expires. At 9:02 a.m., the war begins. Step 5. The bombardment, 9:02 to 9:40 a.m. At 9:02 a.m., HMS Raccoon, HMS Thrush, and HMS Sparrow open fire simultaneously. The bombardment is immediate and devastating. In just minutes, the Royal Navy unleashes 500 shells, 4,100 machine gun rounds, and 1,000 rifle rounds at the palace and harem. The palace is built mostly of wood. Even with barricades of crates, bales, and rubber, the high explosive shells cause catastrophic damage. The structure begins collapsing almost immediately. Fires break out. Smoke fills the air. Khalid's artillery fires back, but within minutes, it's disabled. The defenders' weapons are no match for British naval guns. At 9:05 a.m., the royal yacht HHS Glasgow opens fire on HMS St. George. It's a futile gesture. The Glasgow is an outdated wooden yacht facing modern steel warships. HMS St. George returns fire and sinks the Glasgow. Its masts remain visible above the harbour waterline for the next 18 years, a permanent reminder of the shortest war. Inside the palace, chaos reigns. Around 3,000 defenders, servants, and slaves are trapped in the collapsing wooden structure. The shells are exploding. The building is burning. People are dying. According to some reports, Khalid flees immediately when the first shells hit. Other sources say he stays longer. The truth is unclear. But at some point during the bombardment, Khalid escapes through a back exit of the palace. By 9:40 a.m., just 38 minutes after it began, the palace and harem are in ruins, the Sultan's flag has been cut down, and the firing stops. The war is over. Step 6. The aftermath. The casualty figures tell the story of the mismatch. Over 500 of Khalid's fighters and civilians are killed or wounded. The British? One petty officer is severely injured but later recovers. It's not even close. It's annihilation. Khalid doesn't go far. He runs to the nearby German consulate and requests asylum. The Germans grant it. They have a treaty that prohibits them from surrendering political prisoners. The British demand extradition. The Germans refuse. Tensions rise. Eventually, the Germans smuggle Khalid out of Zanzibar on October 2nd. He's taken by German Navy to modern-day Tanzania without ever stepping on British-controlled soil. He's evacuated by boat at high tide, transferred directly from the consulate's garden gate to avoid British territory. Khalid remains in German East Africa until 1916, when British forces capture him during World War I's East African campaign. He's exiled to the Seychelles and St. Helena, the same barren island where Napoleon died, before being allowed to return to East Africa, where he dies in 1927. Khalid bin Bargash was Sultan of Zanzibar for 2 days. Meanwhile, the British immediately install their preferred candidate, Sultan Hamoud bin Mohammed, who rules on behalf of Britain for the next 6 years. The British also force Khalid's civilian supporters to pay reparations of 300,000 rupees to cover the cost of the war and damages from looting. The message is clear. Britain rules Zanzibar. Don't resist. What it meant. The Anglo-Zanzibar War marked the end of the Sultanate of Zanzibar as a sovereign state and the start of a period of heavy British influence. For the next 67 years, until independence in 1963, Britain would control the island. The war was classic gunboat diplomacy. Overwhelming force, no negotiation, immediate results. It's been described as comparable to a modern-day drone strike against Roman legionaries, a complete mismatch of military technology. But it's also a reminder of imperial brutality. 500 people died in 38 minutes. Most were civilians, servants, slaves, people who had no choice about being in that palace. They died defending a sultan who may have fled immediately when the shooting started. The British celebrated. Admiral Rawson was decorated. He was appointed a Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath and later became Governor of New South Wales in Australia. For Britain, it was a successful demonstration of power. For Zanzibar, it was the final loss of independence. The final shot. So here's what happened. A sultan died. His nephew took the throne without permission. Britain issued an ultimatum. The nephew refused. And 38 minutes later, the war was over. It remains the shortest war in recorded history, briefer than some lunch breaks, shorter than a TV episode, faster than most commutes. But in those 38 minutes, 500 people died, a palace was destroyed, an independence movement was crushed, and Britain solidified its control over East Africa. History's shortest war was also one of its most one-sided, a demonstration of imperial power, a warning to anyone who might resist. Khalid bin Bargash thought Britain wouldn't actually open fire. He was wrong. The guns opened at 9:02 a.m. By 9:40 a.m., it was over. 38 minutes. That's all it took to change Zanzibar's fate for the next 67 years. The shortest war in history, the longest consequences.